Hey there, it's Margaret from Days Well Spent, and in today's class, I'm going to show you how to make your own homemade dog bones. Homemade dog bones are a healthy alternative to the store-bought dog bones you'll find. You can choose what type of ingredients you want to use based on your dog's taste preference and dietary needs, and you'll also be leaving out a lot of the harmful preservatives and chemicals that you'll find in store-bought dog bones. You're going to need some eggs. For the batch that we're making today, we'll need 2 eggs. You'll need some peanut butter, brand of your choice. I like to use the creamy, and you'll need about 1/4 cup. You'll need some flour, and we're going to use about 3 to 3.5 cups. And depending on what you prefer to use, you can also take some oatmeal and just grind up some oatmeal if you prefer that. A little bit of coconut oil, which is optional. And then you're going to need some pumpkin puree. Now this is pumpkin puree that came from the pet store, but it's just 100% pumpkin. It's the same thing that you'll find at the grocery store in the baking section. Now the tools that you're going to need are going to be an oven to bake them in, a baking sheet, and I like to line mine, measuring cup, a bowl to mix in, spoon or a mixer, and you'll need some kind of cookie cutter. I'm going to use this dog bone. With the wet ingredients, so I've got 2/3 cup of the pumpkin puree here. Now we're going to add our 2 eggs, and I am using large eggs. We're going to go ahead and give this a mix. And add a couple of teaspoons of the coconut oil. And this is totally optional, but it is really good for your pet's coat. Now we've got all of our wet ingredients mixed. I'm going to go ahead and heat up my oven. I'm going to set it at 350 degrees. The last thing to add is going to be our flour. I'm going to start by adding 2 cups. We'll add more flour if we need it. What we want is a dough consistency that is able to be rolled. The only reason I'm not using my stand mixer today for this is I wanted to make sure you guys could see that even if you don't have a mixer, it can be done mixing it by hand. Stand mixer does make it a lot faster though. Dry dough, I'm going to go ahead and work it with my hands. Alright, so this dough is the perfect consistency. It's just a little bit tacky to the touch. It's a firm dough, and that's going to make rolling it out and cutting it with the cookie cutters easier. We're going to begin rolling out our dough and cutting it with the cookie cutters. Dust the area that you're rolling your dough out on with some flour. We're going to put the dough down onto the flour and just rub it both sides. Then I like to take a little bit of flour and rub it around on my rolling pin. So we're going to roll our dough out till it's about 1/4 inch in thickness. If your rolling pin starts to stick, go ahead and rub it with some flour. So I'm at about 1/4 inch now. I'm going to go ahead and grab my cutter, and I'm going to start cutting these out. And I do have a baking pan to the side that has been lined with some parchment paper. I'm going to place the dog bones on that. So if you're not used to using cookie cutters, all you do is the cookie cutter is going to have a side that you can tell is a little bit sharper. The side that you hold on to is usually going to be beveled or kind of rounded. You take the cookie cutter, you push it down into the dough, and I like to get really close to the edge so no dough is wasted. You push it in, give it a little bit of a wiggle, and usually the shape will just pop out from the bottom. If it doesn't, just kind of tap it a little bit and it will come off. And then you place this on your lined baking sheet. take it and you move it over. Again, you want to try to use up as much of the dough as you can, and that means keeping your shapes really close together. If you have any stuck, it just will usually easily pull away. If it doesn't, you can take a butter knife or something and rub it against it and it'll pop off. And you'll just go through and you'll do that until you've used up all of your dough. So once you've cut out your shapes, you usually have something that looks like this. Now there's still quite a bit of dough here that can be used. So what you do is you just take it, you bring it in, you make a ball, and then you roll it out and cut it the way we did originally. So we've used up all of our dough. We've got all of the bones placed out on our baking sheet, and I did go ahead and line mine with parchment paper. It just makes it easier to get them off once they're finished and makes cleaning the pan a lot easier. Now what we're going to do is place some vent holes into the dog bones, and we're going to place them down this center section. We're going to use some toothpicks to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a toothpick, we're just going to push it down and kind of wiggle it around. That's going to make some holes. And the hole will close up just a little bit. That's the way the dough is. You don't need to worry about that. 3 or 4 are plenty. What this is going to do is it's going to allow the steam to escape. I'm going to go through and place the holes in all of your dog bones. All our dog bones are baking. Let's go ahead and talk about some alternatives that we can use if you don't want to use the pumpkin puree. The first one is going to be some really ripe bananas. Mash them up and use the same quantity as the pumpkin puree. The other option is to take some carrots and steam them until they're soft, and you can mash those up and use those in place of the pumpkin puree. Another alternative is to leave out the peanut butter and increase the amount of pumpkin puree or bananas, and you can also, if you want, switch it out and add in some chicken broth or some beef broth if you'd like. So timer's gone off. I went ahead and turned it off and the oven. Now what we're going to do is we're going to transfer our dog bones onto a cooling rack to cool. And because we lined the pan, they come up really easy. You want to leave your dog bones on the cooling rack for a couple of hours until they're thoroughly cooled. Now that your dog bones have fully cooled, it's time to go ahead and talk about storage. Now these dog bones will stay good for about 4 to 5 days, depending on the humidity and the temperature. Once they've fully cooled, you want to go ahead and place them in an airtight container, such as a mason jar or even a regular cookie jar will keep them fresh for, like I said, 4 to 5 days. If you want to keep them fresh longer, you can place them in the refrigerator and they'll stay good 7 to 10 days, or you can place them in your freezer and they'll be good for about 6 months.